I'm going to tell you now about an incident that happened quite a while ago now, but it's significant to illustrate the corruption in our system. And it persists to date. I recently gave information about what I've been talking about in the videos that I've been making. I recently reported that to the police. I wrote a statement, and I made some videos. I submitted the videos as well, a couple of statements, and to Corwin Hildenbrand at the Kawartha Lakes Police Service, and he read it and said, nope, not interested. So, these crimes that I'm describing, their police are okay with them, Crown's okay with them. Anyway, so this is another incident among those that I reported to them that the police think is okay and the Crown thinks is okay. I was teaching at Brock University, and I had reported a number of assaults to the police, and I'd made applications to the Information Privacy Commission to get records, to try to make sure that the police were making proper records, even after Sergeant Mark Trojan of the Niagara Regional Police said to me, "What do you need records for if you're dead?" Which is a little intimidating. But I think records are important, accurate records. And what I found when I made Freedom of Information access was that police were not recording correct dates. They weren't recording correct times. All they were pretty much saying was things like MHA, so that's Mental Health Act. As if that just dismisses every complaint a person might make. Anyway, not to mention that that violates the charter to discriminate against someone who you think has a mental illness. Which eventually I asked the Crown twice. I said, what kind of proof do you have of any mental illness? They said, we don't have any proof. So they're making all these allegations and making dismissals under the Mental Health Act and everything, with absolutely no evidence to support their assumption that I was mentally ill, and to dismiss my complaints as symptoms of mental illness. So that's very, very Andrei Sakharov-ish. Anyway, so I was working at Brock, and I left work one night. It was about 8 o'clock in April. It was raining, and it was dark. It was the 4th of April. And I went to the parking lot, and I got in my car, and just as I had closed the door, I saw 3 men come up to the car. And the one guy, he grabbed the handle of the car and opened it. And my first thought was mistaken identity. They got the wrong car. And but then he grabbed me by my jacket. He grabbed me by the front of my jacket and threw me back and forth in the car. And he was yelling the whole time. He had his mouth wide open, like that, yelling. And I got a good look at his face. And I got a good look at him too as he was running away. He was bow-legged. He ran. The police, when I told them that, they laughed. They said, "Oh, as if his pants are too tight." I have no idea why he was running away bow-legged, but he was bow-legged. That's how he was running, with his legs bowed. Anyway, then after that assault, I went to the campus police, and the campus police called Niagara Regional Police, and about eight or so officers showed up, and they filled the little campus police office, just kind of looking at me. And I remember being really agitated and saying to them, well, quit gawking at me, go find the son of, the 3 guys that did this. I mean, just the one guy put his hands on me, but the other 2 were watching. They were all dressed the same. They were all wearing hoodies. And so I don't know if the guy was bald or what kind of color his hair was, but I got a really good look at his face, and I gave that description to the police. It was Officer Larry Renier was the one who responded from the Niagara Regional Police. And then he gave it to a detective. And Larry Renier, too, he called it a sexual assault, even though I probably wouldn't. I said to him, you wouldn't call it a sexual assault if I were a man. He said, no. So just because he was throwing me back and forth and hitting my chest, I mean, that, in my view, but anyway, that's what they called it. And they did that for a reason. They didn't really think it was a sexual assault. They had no intention of prosecuting it or investigating it as a sexual assault. They didn't, as the hospital later pointed out to me, tell me to go to the hospital to collect forensic evidence, which they're supposed to do whenever there's any kind of a sexual assault. And but they didn't do that. So what they did do was the detective, who was Brian Smith, Niagara Regional Police Service, Brian Smith. He's now a lawyer. He has a little law practice in St. Catharines. He said to me, he said, you have to go to the sexual assault center and talk to a counselor. Well, I didn't feel like I had to do that. This was a stranger assault. I'm not traumatized. I wasn't raped or anything. You know, why would I go to a sexual assault? But I went just because he insisted. And when I went to the sexual assault center, the counselor, who, she wouldn't give me her last name, she called herself Anne. She wouldn't give me her last name, but she'd be easy to identify because there wasn't a lot of staff there at the time. It was the Ministry of the Attorney General Sexual Assault Center. And she was a woman of mixed race who walked with a noticeable limp, so she wouldn't be hard to identify. Anyway, she didn't want to talk about the assault, which sort of surprised me a little bit, since that's why I was referred there, I thought. Nope, she told me, she said, you should write a letter to the Minister of the Attorney General and ask for funding for a counseling center for disabled women. She said if I did that I would be made the CEO, and that there would be, quote, a lot of money in it for you. And now, why would she suggest that to me? Obviously, didn't know the woman first time I'd ever met her, but obviously somebody had told her to make that offer to me. And I had just recently completed a Master of Arts degree in education with a psychology certification, which means I was qualified to practice as a psychologist in Ontario. She said to me, I mean, it might have been an attractive offer had she not added a caveat, which was, all you have to do in exchange is sign a waiver to agree to protect the identity of men disabling women in Ontario. Like I'm going to do that. You know, people coming to my counseling center telling me, oh, this guy named Paul Bernardo, oh, it's all in your head, you're mentally ill, go take some pills. You know, no. I said, no thanks. I wasn't rude about it at all. I just said, no thanks. She called me damaged. You're damaged, and told me to get out, so I left. And then later, Detective Smith called me down to the station, and I went. He wanted me to speak with duty counsel. He had me speak on the phone to Bill Pye, P-Y-E. And, you know, I didn't know why, but when I went to speak to Smith afterwards, he said to me, well, we've decided you're lying. And then he proceeded to tell me about the assault, you know. And then he proceeded to tell me that they'd spoken with one of the men who was involved, and that he'd said that he sat in the parking lot for a week prior to the incident watching me. Oh my God, how do you think that made me feel? And he said, he told police that he said I was a bad teacher because I don't keep a regular schedule. Well, I told the police, yeah, I don't keep a regular schedule because I'm being stalked. And one of the things you're advised when you're being stalked is don't keep a regular schedule. Anyway, I think that should have been enough for the police to arrest him on stalking, you know, criminal harassment. But nope. What the detective said to me was that if I didn't shut up about what happened, that police and the Crown would find me guilty and charge me with a criminal offense and find me guilty and put me in jail if I didn't shut up about what happened. That's what Smith said to me. And you know what? I consulted 2 lawyers after that because it kind of scared me. What the heck? You know, what could they find me guilty of? What the heck do they think I've done? I'm a victim here. Like, I'm being assaulted. I had reported a number of assaults, and I spoke with Joseph McAllister. He's a lawyer, and he said he was almost as frightening as what the police said. He said that he said it's I told him that the police, appeared to be fabricating evidence, that I was doing freedom of information access to records and finding all sorts of, errors, if you can call them errors. I don't think anybody can be that stupid to, I tell them they got the date wrong, the time wrong, the place wrong, they got everything wrong in the record they're keeping. So, I told him that, and he said, "Oh, it's the job of police to fabricate evidence." He also said that no judge in the land would find in my favor. So, I found that kind of frightening. So I consulted another lawyer, Bernie Hawkins, and he said he had no idea what they could charge me with, except maybe mischief if the reports that I was making to police weren't true. But of course they were true, and I've never been charged with mischief. What I was charged with 3 times after that, because Smith, I guess, he was telling the truth, and I don't know. I don't think I really talked to many people about it, but I did talk to those 2 lawyers about it, so maybe that counted as not keeping my mouth shut, And so I was repeatedly charged with threatening, for saying to the police, if you won't help me and this person makes good on whatever threat to come back and kill me or blow me up in my car, or kill me. And I recorded, there were over 2 dozen death threats and assaults. So that includes the assault with the car, and also the threat that I was going to be assaulted with the car, as well as, I was spat on a couple of times and called a filthy Jew, and I was assaulted other times as well, and threatened. Lots and lots of death threats. Usually using the first person plural, we are going to kill you. We are going to beat you up beyond recognition. We are the mob, and we are going to shoot you and shoot your dog. That sort of thing. Anyway, that's kind of the incident that I wanted to describe, and it goes to just how corrupt our system is, because the police, they don't seem to think that's something that should be investigated and prosecuted. They think that's okay. Now, if you're a politician who kisses a girl who's legal, if she's the legal age, well, that's a big bad crime in the eyes of the media. And if you really want favor with our government, with our crown lawyers, and with our police, what you do is you build some bombs and you blow up some Americans, because that really pays in our society. But the police who I recently reported to, that officer, Corwin Hildenbrand, he must think I'm subhuman, or maybe he thinks I'm vermin. Maybe he thinks I'm like a rat. They hate rats. Police, you'd think they like informants, but no, they don't like people who report crime after the 3rd time they wrongly prosecuted me. I still don't have a criminal record because, as I was intimidated, I was really angry, because it's a real misuse of justice, real perversion of justice to do this kind of thing to innocent people. Try to, they kept trying to get me to make a false confession. Really like Sakharov-ish. And I don't know. It's very corrupt, and they must the crown lawyer, after the 3rd time that they wrongly prosecuted me, and it was dismissed, and 10 years out of my life that took 10 years, and he said to me, "Well, maybe now you won't complain anymore." See, so it's okay to blow up children. You get millions of dollars in compensation for that. It's okay to deal drugs. It's okay to... Oh yeah, the doctor who said to me, you can always expect to have nothing and nobody unless you agree to hurt children just like everybody else. Wonder who's behind this. They don't just deal drugs, they also deal in arms and sadistic child porn. Doctors, lawyers, crown lawyers, police.